Feel as if I have been looking at the main character in these glass filled eyes, and I just been trying to make her be like this amazing freaking person, and she's like evil. She's evil. She's twisted, and I cannot believe that I did not see this. I feel blinded. She just poisoned Karen. So Karen's dead because of her. I'm just so. I just hope not. Nope. Nope. We don't know that yet. We don't know that yet. It's. We're still not at that point where we're like, okay, at this point, I'm confused. I'm lost. I don't know what the fuck's going on. We're not there yet. Chapter 26. Karen spent the next few days in bed. I popped in to see her in between bouts of sunbathing, snorkeling, and drinking. Wafting incense sticks around in the effort to get rid of the smell of sickness and sweat. Harry came with me sometimes, but he seemed detached, distant. Maybe it was the doctor him taking over, but it was as though he no longer saw her as Karen, the object of his affection, but a patient. She was still feeling too sick to come with us all to the Emerald Cave. We had a fantastic day. Harry and I larking about, pushing each other off the boat, taking it in turns to dive into the sea. I imagined what it'd be like without Karen around. I enjoyed her company, but when she wasn't there, Harry's attention was on me instead. I was on a high when we arrived back at the resort. I had a drink with the others at the bar, pretending not to notice as Harry slunk off. When I returned to the room, Karen was sitting up in bed looking happier. On the bedside table was a sleek, ornamental Buddha, about 6 inches in height. I picked it up. It was beautiful and heavy, carved out on the decks. Where did you get this? Harry bought it for me, she said, to cheer me up. Why hadn't I thought of doing something like that? I put it back, feeling desolate. She only been absent from the group for less than a week, but the dynamics had already started to shift. I was no longer struck with Dylan, but had become Henry's companion. It was me he would seek out if he wanted to go into the village or for a swim. Now Karen was better. I was worried things would revert to the way they had been before. Sure enough, when we left Kauai Pai a week or so later and traveled by boat to Koalana, where we rode elephants and snorkeled through the brightly colored coral, I noticed Harry going closer again. Every time he was in the vicinity, her mouth would tilt up into a smile, incriminating her dimples, and they would gravitate toward each other, linking arms and wandering off together, their heads bent in conversation. I wondered if they were shagging. I never lowered myself to ask. And there was certainly no giggly admissions from Karen. She wasn't the type. I wondered if it was time to move on without them, make some new friends. It was easier to do that here, especially as the old ones were beginning to feel like deadwood. I felt my power diminishing with both Karen and Henry, and I didn't like it. I'm glad you didn't kill the girl. I'm glad you did not kill the girl, because I should say, damn, shorty, you a murderer? You got the ex-husband, she married young, and that was understandable. But damn, girl, you gonna kill this girl of a dude? You in your 20s, you got to do better. I'm thinking of going back to Bangkok, I said one evening a few weeks later. The weather had begun to get windier, with frequent heavier showers, and although the heat was more comfortable than it had been back in May, it wasn't quite so much fun diving and sunbathing. Everything was so cheap in Thailand. We were amazed by how far our bath went. The resort we were staying in now was right on the beach, although the one-bedroom chopper I shared with Karen was basic. We had laughed and shocked at the hole in the ground that was the toilet. We were sharing one of the hammocks dotted about the beach facing each other, our legs entwined, shipping coattails. The sun had gone down and the fairy lights were peppered about overhead. It had rained earlier, but the air was warm, the wind rippling over the dark sea. In the distance, we could see the others at the beach bar. Every now and again, their chorus of laughter would reach us. Karen's eyebrows shot up as she sucked her cocktail through a straw. The liquid was a vivid pink, berries and watermelon mixed with vodka, staying on her lips. She swallowed. You want to leave Kolana? I'm quite sure likes to go north, then maybe to the Napa, or Manmore. I could tell she was considering the idea. She licked her lips. That does sound like it would be fun. I love it here, I admit it. Throwing one of my arms in the air and glancing around at the long stretch of white sandy beach, the sparkling waters, the palm trees nodding in the breeze. It really was paradise. On one long holiday, one extended party. A young guy in the beach hut next to us was having um, um, massage from a dainty Thai woman who was practically sitting on his back as she bustily kneaded his shoulders. Ugh, just fucked my toe up, y'all. But it's been a few months now. Time to move on. My heart beat fast behind my tank top. If I was honest with myself, I wanted her to come with me, but not for others. I tried the stem in my glass, watching an array of different emotions pass over Karen's face. Like disco lights. She was weighing up whether to leave Henry or to leave me. She took a swig of her drink. When are you planning to go? In a few days. Do you want to come too? Or are you too happy to stay? I tried to keep my voice even, to show I was indifferent whether she decided to do. She said, I'm not sure. Let me think about it. Of course, I smiled sweetly. She looked relieved, but I wasn't worried. I would make sure she chose me. Because you was an evil. But why do you want her to choose? You need to leave her behind. You need to leave her behind. So if you do meet a dude, he ain't got like her, he like you, and you won't have to poison the girl no more. Poison the girl. Poison that little girl. What's wrong with this? I spent ages getting ready for the next evening. There was a usual party down on the beach. I could hear music and laughter and the tingle of glasses from my open window. I studied myself in a small speckled mirror. I lost over stone living off rice and fish for months and was more celibate, more tan than I ever been. My dark hair was glossy and I looked healthy and attractive. I applied some red lipstick and slicked my hair back off my face. It was going out of my pixie cut and needed reshaping. We started drinking early and I already felt a little slosh as we made our way down to the beach. I was worried about drinking too much, Karen said. At the last time, I still feel embarrassed to think of it, and I don't understand why the alcohol affected me so much. It was dark now and the steps were decorated with a little lantern so we could find our way. There was a string of fairy lights hung around the bar, giving it a festive atmosphere. I spotted Harry standing with Lars and Dylan on the beach. His head swirled around when we walked in, but he didn't come over. What's wrong with Harry? I asked as we queued at the bar. His face like a slapped arse right now. Karen's mouth twisted. Oh, Beth, you're wicked. I told him we might be leaving. He doesn't want to come, as he's already been to the north. I remember him telling us when we first met, but I said nothing. Just not as sympathetically as she continued. I think he wants to carry on traveling with Dylan and Lars. They hooked up in Vietnam and have been together ever since. She sighed. Emma's going to stay with them too. Harry asked if we want to go with them. What do you think? Where are they headed next? I think they want to fight in India. India? I don't think you'll like it, I found myself saying. You get Dalai belly and there's people shitting in the streets. Plus it's a long way from here. She looked miserable instead of the hands. I know it's far, but I've always wanted to see Thai Mala. And it's just all right for them, I added. This in Thailand. But we're only just started, Karen. And what about Vietnam? Locust. I'm not done with Southeast Asia yet. It would be a shame to cut it short. You must do what you think best. But I'm leaving for Bangkok tomorrow. I wanted to think that Lily wasn't like an ass and that she was just nice. And now I'm seeing she was an ass. She was an ass. We were interrupted by the cute barman asking where we wanted to drink. And after ordering cocktails, we floated off toward the beach. Caught up in the throng of our other party girls. Emma came bouncing toward us, pulling me and Karen to where she was standing with Lars and Harry. Dylan was chatting up to a busty blonde over in a darkened corner. Henry looked handsome that night. The sun had bleached the ends of his hair and colored his skin to a golden hue. I longed to touch him, to kiss his full mouth. Karen was also looking at him with longing. The difference was he was turning her look of lust. Harry, what was his story? Everyone had a story. The music was pumping, some dance tune that pulsated in my ear. I knocked into Henry on purpose so that his drink spilled. I'm so sorry, I said, taking his glass as he looked with dismay at the sticky liquid dribbling down his thigh. I'll get you another. Karen was chatting to Emma and hardly noticed me hurry to the bar. Damn, so you gonna kill Henry? It was easy to slip the drugs into Henry's drink with nobody around to see. When I returned, Henry smiled at me and took the drink gracefully. Cheers, Beth. You didn't have to do that. It was my fault, I said, staying by his side. Someone turned the music up and a new crowd surged onto the beach. Karen and I got separated, so I was left alone with Henry. I saw him glance about trying to spot Karen, but I grabbed his hand, moved us farther into the crowd. He was still holding his glass, but I was pleased to note that he had downed most of it. Dance with me, I said in my most sensuous voice, moving my body suggestively to the music. He began swaying half-heartedly as the crowd enveloped us so that we were on our own little bubble. His pupils were huge in his face. This was my chance, I thought. This was my chance to show her. I just hoped she was watching. I reached up and pulled him closer, grinding myself against him. I saw the surprise in his eyes, but he placed a hand on one of my hips, and I reached up and planted a lingering kiss on his mouth. My hands finding that lovely brown hair at the nape of his neck, taking in the smell of him like lemons. I felt him stiffen at first, shocked at my forwardness, but then he went with it, relaxing into the kiss. Girl, she ain't gonna want to go nowhere with you after this. The fuck you mean? She like him. You could have talked. You could have communicated. She better not. She after seeing how you act like this, she better say she not going with you. The fuck is wrong with you? You already drugged her, now you drugging Henry. You just Libby just out here drugging folks out freely and really we need it. You gotta go. His tongue found mine, lost in the moment like I knew he would be. It went on for ages. His hips banged against mine as he grabbed my arch, pulling me so close that I was almost sitting on him. His drink spilled down the back of my top, but I didn't care. I grounded to him, feeling him harden against me. I was good at seduction. Sheen always said so. Eventually, as though waking from a trance, Henry pulled away from me, his eyes widening hard as it dawned on him what he'd done. Oh God, I'm so drunk, he said, as if that made everything all right. I could see his head swirling around like a maracas as he tried to spot Karen in the crowd. I need to take a piss, he added, before staggering off. When I turned around, I caught Karen's eye. By the hurt that flickered on her face, I knew that she had seen everything. And you're going to be the one to pay for this sin, stupid. The next morning, the two of us traveled to Bangkok alone. I pleaded ignorance, of course. Said it was all him. That he was a sleaze, just like Dylan. She was so angry she never even said goodbye to him, and we left before he even got up. I admired her for that. So she went with you, okay. She was stronger than she first appeared, although I noticed that she packed the Buddha he had given her. Maybe I should have realized how much she loved him. I can see that now in hindsight. I can see that I made a terrible mistake in what I did. But I was young and hot-headed, resentful. I wanted to punish her for being the one that Henry had chosen. How was I to know that she would end up punishing me? She gonna sell you? Because at this point, if she fucking sell you, I'm here for it. I'm here for her selling you. I'm here for her selling you, Libby. Because right now, you're not appreciating this friendship and you're being a roach. Chapter 2037. That's what I said. Okay? If you got a problem with it, you already know where to put it in the comments. Things had changed between us. On the train to Bangkok, I sensed her taking sneaky peeks at me from behind her book. Some soppy rom-com, as though trying to figure me out. But she had my measure, surely. She knew that what she was letting herself in for when she first heard me hurling the C word at those guys. When she agreed to swap seats. When she got a tattoo to show me she wasn't a coward. She wanted to impress me, to please me. She must have known I liked Henry too, but she hadn't wanted me to have him. Oh no, she could be selfish when it suited her. It was the end of August by now, and rain drummed onto the roof of the train. We didn't speak much as we sat opposite each other. No difference to how it had been 3 months previously. No excitable laughter or getting to know each other chatter. No banner drinking cans of lager. Karen read her book with a soaking look on her face, and I stared out the window, following the raindrops with my eyes as they snaked down the glass. When it was time for bed, we went up our bunks wordlessly. Karen climbed to the top, and I didn't see her or hear from her again until the morning. You need to not travel with her, cause she don't get her way. I would miss Henry too. I wanted to tell her, but it was for the best. If I couldn't have him, then she wouldn't. She couldn't either. I lay there in the dark, the occasional light flashing past, and the low hum of conversation from the other passengers keeping me awake. By the time we reached Bangkok, she had begun to bore me with her sulky silences. I started to think I was going to have to cut her loose. I wasn't sensing her admiration anymore, just her disapproval. It reminded me too much of shame. We trudged around the city for most of the day, visiting the Grand Palace and the reclining Buddha, even though we both seen them before. We were aimless, really engrossed in our own little wards, missing Henry and the others, but not wanting to admit it to each other. The sky was overcast by the afternoon, the weather humid. We took a boat down the river to see the houses built on sleds. I was amazed as the Finch jumped up, mouths gaping open for the food the guide was throwing them, before disappearing back into the murky water. Karen sat staring in the distance, her eyes full of sadness, knowing everything around her. Karen answered my questions in a monotone as we stepped off the boat, pretending to be engrossed in the architects. I wanted to tell her to get over it, that he was just a guy, but I acted like there was nothing wrong between us as I studied my guidebook. This hostel sounds cheap, I said as we veered down a dusty residential side road in less cyberist part of town. If they got space, should we stay here tonight? And then we could travel north tomorrow? She lifted her shoulders in a half-hearted sure. She glanced up at the building. It was narrow and sat back between two shop fronts, with large glass windows and a bonus tree wilting by the entrance. She shouted me through the hallway and stood examining the most mossy tile flooring while inquired about rooms. We are not busy tonight, said an attractive Thai woman with a beaming smile. She had a glossy, dark hair swept up in a bun and coral lipstick that didn't look quite right on her face. She led us 2 floors up and down a corridor to a narrow room with 2 sets of bunk beds. A fly buzzed at the open window between the bunks. There was no air conditioning. The room felt muggy and the walls seemed to tilt inward. I said we'll take it. Karen collapsed onto one of the lower bunks. She had dark rings under her eyes and her face was pale. She curled up on top of the sheets, still fully clothed, her knees tucked into her chest. I told her I was popping out to the 7-Eleven on the corner, promising to be right back. When I returned, armed with bags of crisp and cans of fizzy drinks, she was sitting up, staring into the distance, hugging her knees, a look I couldn't quite read on her face. I offered her a can, and she took it without a word. It hissed and bubbled as she opened it. I went to the loo. When I came back, she was fast asleep, her eyes fluttering behind her lids. The Coke can by the side of the bed open yet untouched. I picked it up and drank it. Now I wanted it to go to waste and settle down on the bottom bunk opposite. On a windowsill between our beds sat her Buddha. On impulse, I picked it up and shoved it into my backpack. She had to stop looking at him, mooning over Henry. I was doing her a favor. I must have fallen asleep too, because when I opened my eyes, I was sprawled out on the bed, still fully dressed. I had been sleeping heavily and felt groggily, wondering what had woken me. It was so dark it was like my eyes were still closed and there was a funny smell in the air, thick and clocky. I could hear shrieks coming from the corridor and a pounding of feet. I sat bolt upright, hitting my head on the bunk above and blinking as my eyes adjusted to the darkness. My whole body felt lethargic. Somebody was hammering on the bedroom door as though trying to break it down. What was going on? Then the door burst open. Smoke filled the room, curling around the bedpost, thick and black, stinging my eyes and making me cough. A fireman was standing in the doorway. He shouted to me in Thai. I tried to get up, but my legs felt heavy and gave way, so I fell onto the floor. Karen, I called. Karen, get up! The smoke was so dense that I couldn't tell if she was out of bed or still asleep. I tried to get to my knees, the smoke jamming the back of my throat, threatening to choke me. I couldn't breathe. I was losing the edges of my vision. Suddenly, I felt hands grab me and scoop me up. Somebody speaking. A man's voice, calm. I realized it was a fireman. He was carrying me down the corridor. My lungs were working overtime as I tried to inhale, but there was no air, just the acid smoke. Like a thick do-it ram down my throat. I was suffocating. And then we were heading towards the opening. A rectangle of black sky just visible through the smoke. And finally, I was taking deep, desperate breaths of fresh air. The fireman clattered down a mental stairwell with me slung over his shoulders. A group of teenagers was standing on the ground, grappling in fascinated horror as he dropped me to the pavement. I crawled onto the hot tarmac and stared at the fire ate away at the top floor of the hostel like some ravenous beast. Karen was in there! My friend! I pointed in the direction of the hostel. He ran back inside just as one of the windows exploded with a popping sound. Glass splintering and raining down on us. There was a cry. The group cowered, covering their heads with their hands while I looked on in dismay. A policeman yelled at us in Thai, then in English, "Stand back!" It was utter chaos after that. More fire engines turned up, lucid yellow screaming to the hall outside the hostel, and I was ushered into the ambulance, dazed and still coughing. As the fire worsened, I could only watch, wrapping in a scratchy blanket the color of horse dung, shivering despite the heat. After a while, I was taken to a hospital, where I was checked for smoke inhalation. When the doctor asked for my name, I lied. I didn't want to reveal my name in case it made the newspapers. I could just imagine the headline. British backpacker survives hostile fire in Thailand. And then Shane would know where I was. I had no documents on me, no details. They would have gone up in smoke along with everything else. I could hardly sleep that night. My chest felt heavy, as though the smoke was still in my lungs. I thought of Karen. Had she managed to escape? The next morning, I was discharged. I had to fill out forms, which I did in a fake name. I went back to the hostel. It was unrecognizable. The top floor completely burnt out, blackened and seeming to shimmer in the heat. The lower floors covered in ash. Officials were picking their way through the wreckage. My belongings had been destroyed. When I asked if an English girl had been found, a harassed-looking policeman with a notebook shook his head sadly. He took down my details, saying they might want to interview me for the investigation, but I never heard more from them. Over the next few days, I rang around all the hospitals to find out if she had been taken in or having treatment, but each and one of them said the same thing. No Karen Fisher had been admitted. 8 died in the fire that night. 3 members of staff and 5 backpackers. There were 7 survivors and 2 missing. Luckily, the hospital had been relatively empty. Otherwise, there would have been a lot more casualties. There was no mention of my name or Karen's. Most things had been liberated in the fire. No records survived. Just bodies found, blackened and burnt. I was lost in the days and weeks that followed, numb, going through the motions as I contracted the British embassy. I applied for a new passport, and my maiden name of Elizabeth Davies. A way of escape then signed permanently. I'm not too proud to admit that I miss Karen. I miss her companionship. Somebody to laugh with, even her crap jokes. It's funny how life can change direction so suddenly, as though everything is being engineered by a higher being. My dad was a vicar, and both he and my mom spent their time trying to instill Christ into me, so that even now I can't quite shake the belief that there might be something in it. Even though I rebelled against it as a teenager, running away from home at 15 and living in a squad with a group of like-minded people until I met Shane. I told Karen my parents were dead, but the truth was my mom left. She left my dad, and she left me. I hadn't clasped eyes on her since I was 12. She would spend ages sitting on the edge of my bed in the evening, before she ran out on us, sprouting words from the Bible at me, telling me I need to cleanse myself of sin. I often wondered if she'd done the same, after she fucked off a man from my local church. Or maybe the words didn't apply to her. My dad blamed me, saying I was different. A spoiled only child. I wasn't quite right, he said, because I didn't conform to the way he lived his life as a pillar of the community in our quaint chocolate box factory. After Mom left, he was always getting called in school because I played truant or got caught smoking behind the bike sheds. When I was seen kissing Theo Masters in the boys' loo, my dad had been furious, branding me a slut like your mother. We rolled and I stormed out. I never seen or saw him again. As a kid, I imagined God like a puppet master, hoovering above us all, pulling our strings, deciding which way our lives would go as though on a whim. Marrying Shane so young had been an escape. He was desirable because he was older, so well off with his own flat. He had his own construction company. I've been impressed by him, but I jumped from one disaster to another. When Karen had said I was a tough cookie, she hadn't known the half of it. So the whole time you was reminiscing about your motherfucking mama and your daddy with your husband was a lie, because if y'all remember, she made it seem like her mama got sick and from working hard and died, and her daddy, you know, was an alcoholic and he died after that. Now we found out that the mama was just a church loving hoe. But I'm still trying to figure out, how did Karen get her revenge? How did Karen punish her? So I was gonna just keep going, but I'm not gonna keep going. I'm gonna stop it right here at chapter 28, and we'll be back. Well, not so long, but we'll be back.